This is Curious Brain Thoughts.
Good day, dear Paul.
Why, hello, lovely Lou.
How are you on this cold and frost? I've got 2 jumpers on. I'm not going to lie. It's absolutely blimmin' freezing.
It is blimmin' freezing. And I wonder for how long we could keep up the alliteration. You know, it's just something that popped into my head. I started with lovely Lou, and then you got really complicated by talking about the weather. The chilly, cold, no.
The chilly, cold calmness of the copious...
Crisp. Crunch.
Crispy, crunchy cauliflower. No.
Which is ground. Mm-hmm. Crispy, crunchy cauliflower ground. Mm-hmm.
So we can't do it all alliterative. I mean, you can have an alliterative statement in a sentence, but if you try to do...
Then you become illiterate.
So Felix and I play a game sometimes where, you create a story and each person says one word.
Yes.
We tried to do that game, but following ABC.
Right.
So his word was A, mine was B. God bless you. He's just sneezed, everyone. But he did a mute, so I didn't need to say it, but I have anyway. You're welcome. Welcome to the reality.
Behind the scenes.
Hashtag
Backstage.
how it's made.
People are actually wondering, they're going, gosh, how do you create such high quality content?
Well, hashtag, what's the word? Magic circle. Because a musician? Oh, God. A magician.
Good. Okay. You see,
Good.
guys, it's all laid bare. It's so clear how we do
This is going to be good, everyone, because I can't even choose the right word from my own native tongue.
Can't choose the right sandwich.
Anyway, moving on.
Good.
There we are.
It's been 1 week since I looked at you. Anyway, sorry, guys.
Name that tune. I
didn't mean to start it.
Yesterday.
No one's joining in, Lou. It's just me and you.
Yes, but they might be. You don't know.
Well, they
and
could.
what? Bare naked ladies. There we are. I knew it would come to me.
So, what the theme for today? I say.
I
was about to. Oh yes, that's right. It's been, yeah. So we met last week. Amazing. On here in podcast land, which is, as we know, is very, very different to Mothland. We've talked about that before. So in Podcastland, how are you doing since we last podcasted?
Yeah, I'm doing all right. Feeling very much better, and a lovely trip to the dentist under one's belt, which is delightful. I mean,
New Year.
It's just, I did say to the dentist, what's it like working in a job where the energy from everyone who enters the room is, I don't want to be here. Mm-hmm. And she actually said it is hot.
She said, that's odd because you're the only person who shows up like that.
And I said, I'm grateful, I'm delighted. And she said, well, you're the only person. And I didn't want to burst her bubble. I wasn't delighted about what was about to happen to me, but I was anticipating feeling delighted about the outcome.
Wonderful.
Do you feel?
I do. And I think you navigated all of that very well, and it takes some mindful focus and effort and intention to face into some things that you don't want to do. So pat yourself on the back, girl.
Yeah, right. And things that you've been avoiding, and it made me tune into what else am I avoiding? Hashtag kicking the can down the road.
I'm far too busy eating my feelings to know what I'm avoiding.
Word. I hear you, brother.
You know, which is a first time for me because I've never done that before.
No.
Eating my feelings.
No. Well, that's something new for the new year, Paul.
Yeah, new year, new me, twice the size.
And twice the fun.
Yes, and obviously I'm going to interrupt that before I do become twice the size. So
Obviously.
obviously.
But let's notice that sometimes that is, if we're in a, any port in a storm.
Yeah.
I noticed a pattern actually with that whole eating one's feelings.
How does it work for you?
Well, how it works is I have my son 50-50 with his dad, and it's week on, week off.
Yep.
And this is once a fortnight it happens to me on the Friday. It's normally a Friday when he goes to his dad.
Right.
On that Friday, out come the wine and crisps. They don't come out any other time. And then out comes the choc. And sometimes it doesn't happen, but I do notice that has, although the feelings around that transition have definitely changed over time and become less vibrant, the habit's still there.
Yes.
And I do fall back on it. And do you know what? I ain't mad about it, and I do not give myself a hard time, because these things are tricky. Sometimes you just need a little bit of chocolate.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, I hear you. And I think we were talking about it maybe it was in last week's episode about total rest. That's right.
Yes.
Again, thinking about where I went to in my head was, being totally or completely or perfectly perfect. Oh, I never eat my feelings. I never fall over. I never do anything wrong. It's like, guys, that's never, I'm sorry to tell you, never going to happen. And so it's okay to have some ups and downs on our journey, which is nice.
Yes. Yes, it is.
Yes, it jolly well is.
So how are you, Paul?
Amazing. Still fighting on this bloody virus thing. Just won't let go. 1 minute I think I'm all right, and then the next minute I'm feeling like a bag of spanners. I feel like aforementioned spanners right now.
What can you explain the origin of that phrase? Why is it that a bag of spanners? Why isn't it a bag of something
Box
else?
of frogs.
Why isn't it a bag of hammers? Why is it spanners?
Yes. Well, because
maybe it's spanner in the works. Maybe that's what it is.
Actually, interestingly,
have you just looked it up, Paul, off of the World Wide Interweb?
No, goodness.
No, you delved into your memory banks there.
My Google memory banks. And what I'm finding is people really want to slam a load of cookies in my face.
Good.
Which is great.
Chocolate chip?
Oh, that's interesting.
Tell us, don't leave us hanging on tender hooks.
Well, according to whatever this quality website is, which I'm, dubious about, it says, like a bag of spanners. In British slang, extremely ugly. The metaphor is usually applied to a person's face. What the funky chickens you on about? That's an absolute nonsense. So don't believe the internet. Yeah, anyway, so bag of spanners, there's the origin. Actually, in all seriousness, it comes from the 14th century. And what they found was, because obviously spanners were really coming
They
into
have
their own.
spanners in the 14th century.
Yes. If you look it up, it will be very clear. And they were coming into their own, you see. So, the
spanners were
blacksmiths,
having a moment.
They were. This year it's like 90s wear that all the young people seem to be wearing again. In those days, it was spanners. That was like the thing, yeah. And so it was quite prestigious if you had more than one. And those that had a bag of spanners, when they would put them down in a bit too much zeal and zest, there'd be a terrible clang of all these, oh my gosh. It's an awful noise, like a bag of spanners, you see. And that's where it all comes from. So it's amazing, because the Hessian bags just couldn't quite hold the weight of all the metalwork in the spanners. So
Interesting.
there's quite a lot of clanging that went on.
Now, if you hadn't have put that in the 14th century, that was your error.
Yes.
Because I'm like, a spanner is it's a response to machines, isn't it, really?
Right. So
So,
so when we're nuts and bolts then. All right, here we
there
go.
weren't that many those fellas hanging around in 14th century.
When were nuts and bolts invented?
Well, you got wheels, haven't you, on carts?
Okay, sorry, I was slightly off. It was the 15th century. Okay. I'm so sorry, Louise. You're right. If I'd said 15th, then you would have been all over it.
Then your tail would have held some serious water.
Well, it turns out it's
Unfortunately, Paul, you've made a schoolboy error there. What a shame.
And, fact check it if I can. I mean, it's factually accurate. So,
Okay.
there. Well, we've covered quite a lot of ground, and maybe we can... What do you want to do? Would you like to fire up the RTG and give it a run out? Or would you just like to spout something?
Have you got an idea of spouting?
No.
Well, I was thinking...
It's dangerous.
To myself... this time of the year, we are in early Jan, and I was thinking about resoluciones.
Right. Let's not do those then.
Versus the time of year, certainly in the Northern Hemisphere, it's winter, and it's cold, as aforementioned, right? 2 jumpers, etc. That's a time of what? Hibernation.
Yes. And
So
you could
we've got
say,
darkness and coldness and hibernation.
And you need to have extra layers, not just of clothing. The thicker set you are,
The better off you are.
Exactly.
Yes, exactly that. So, and that's what the bears do, right? They lay down how many layers of fat so that they can survive through the winter. Anyway, the point is the disconnect or the juxtaposition between the go, new year, new me, yes, let's blah, 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 and it's dark, it's cold, it's winter, and those things are at odds. And then that got me thinking, I've never made a resolution at New Year that I've ever sustained, ever. And then, or any, if I think about not just New Year, I'm going to go on a diet, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that, you can do it for a period of time, that on the surface behaviour change.
You can, you mean?
Yeah, I can do it for a period of time, and then it drops. So, I was just thinking about that and thinking, actually, this is the very worst time of year for me personally, to start thinking about, right, that's it, I'm going to meditate every morning and do yoga and the blah blahs and the things. Actually, I just want to stay in bed with my fluffy socks on because it's absolutely blimmin' freezing.
Yeah.
And how maybe... But this is the turn of the year and there is some momentum to that, and how could we use that differently? So that's a big jumble of things.
Okay. So
Pick the bones out of that, Paul.
Right. Okay. Yes. Resolutions. So what I'm thinking about is I'm resolved to do something, and the difference with that and setting a goal. For me personally, one of them feels heavier than the other.
Shall I? Do you want me to define as well, or not?
Sure.
Are we not bothered?
Fine, and then I'll carry on.
So this has lots of definitions. A firm decision to do or not to do something, basically.
Which was the context of your opener.
Yeah. The quality of being determined or resolute. The act of solving a problem or a contentious matter. The peaceful resolution for all parties.
Mm-hmm.
So those are the things.
As well as screens.
Yeah.
Screen resolutions.
Yes, that's right.
Yes, no, because resolution in that context is about detail. The higher resolution, the more detail there is.
The more clarity.
More clarity, yes.
Yeah.
So, I was thinking about the difference between resolutions and goals. And for me, I find the idea of a resolution like a promise to myself, you will ...
Mm-hmm.
I find that almost like off-putting. It's like, for
Right.
me, I'd rather set a goal.
Why?
Because with a goal, I might say, it doesn't have to be so exact.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe that's the thing. Because I feel, for me, with a resolution, I need to be clear. I'm going to do this thing, these things, whatever, or not do this thing or these things. With a goal, it's, right, I'm going to head in that direction. I'm going to aim for that thing that's further away.
Mm-hmm.
And in the process of doing so, I will celebrate as I go. And I might not reach the goal. I might have set it too far, and that's okay. And I'll still feel good about what I've achieved. Whereas for me, the way that I have experienced resolutions being used at this time of year is that it's more about, I'm going to do this thing. So
Yes.
I'm going to do a half marathon this year. Well, what if I don't do a half marathon? What if I do, a bunch of 10Ks? And I'm really happy with that. Mm-hmm. Well, then you've not met your resolution, have you? Do you see what I mean? So for me, it carries a difference. I have a goal of doing a half marathon, and there'll be lots of things I will do along the way. And there might just be semantics. It's just how I connect with those words.
Yes, and I think that for some people that might be semantics, as you say, but what you're signalling is that one word has an emotional resonance for you that the other word doesn't have. One word's off-putting and repelling, and the other one isn't. So great.
Yes.
But I wonder then about the emotions underneath a resolution. Particularly a New Year's resolution, for those of us who celebrate Christmas, or there are lots of celebratory times around this time of year. Mm-hmm. Lots of festivals and all sorts of things. And certainly, there's this whole thing of you've let yourself go a bit, and now you need to knuckle down, as it were. And it's a feeling of scarcity, of lack. You had this, now you're going to have less. You did this, you shouldn't have. Bit of shame there, bit of shame, bit of judgment. And maybe that's why New Year's resolutions in particular fail, because they are driven from this place of shame and judgment, of self-criticism. Well, certainly for me in the past, they have been.
Well, it's interesting because you look at how I haven't been to a gym in years. I was talking to someone who is a regular, and they were saying, oh, God, I'm dreading going back. This was like the first week, because it's going to be mobbed with all these people who are like, right, I'm going to the gym now. And they might really be members, and just never go.
Yes.
And then, as you say, by sort of February, March, it really thins out.
Yeah. Because those people have fallen away, never to return.
Yeah, that's right. It is interesting because, as you say, I do feel like there's loading, And for some people, it might be that with, to be resolute about something, as it said in the definition, that's enough to give them this really strong sense of commitment. I'm absolutely going to do this thing. And there's nothing that's going to stop me from doing it, whatever it happens to be.
Yeah, maybe. I'd be interested for people to let us know when they've had a successful experience of holding themselves to a resolution in the very long term, particularly a New Year's resolution. Because I'm just curious. I haven't had that experience, but that isn't to say that isn't other people's experience of it.
That's right.
The cynical part of me thinks that now it's just designed to sell us stuff like gym memberships and other things.
I mean, you don't have to look very far to see. I tell you what, I was in big UK supermarket, Tesco, picking up some bits and bobs. And you know how in supermarkets they tend to sort of front load their promotion, whatever the thing is, there'll be like an aisle that will have all their promotional stuff on it. Yeah. In my Tesco, the local one to me, it's like the first aisle as you walk in through the store. You've got the clothing over one side, and then the first sort of shelf aisle, as it were.
Your Tesco's is big, isn't it?
It is a monster.
Tesco's Extra.
It is really big. And that first shelf is always full of whatever the current thing is they're pushing back to school or, Christmas or whatever. And I was curious to see that the first half of it was still full of booze and things like this, leftovers from Christmas that they're basically trying to push on. And then the second half of that aisle was all alcohol-free everything. Was
it? Dry January.
Exactly. Peddling these particular things and then, health stuff and it's all big business.
Yes, that's right.
So...
And I think that, the thing that strikes me about all of that is that it's only effective if we don't feel good about ourselves right now, just as we are. If we feel too fat, too thin, not hairy enough, too hairy, whatever it is, then that's their opportunity to get in and exploit that feeling in us and basically get us to consume more things.
Yeah, we could go down a bit of a rabbit hole on that, I think. And, there's also potentially other people like us, let's say, who are wanting to be of service in supporting people in trying to do something new. And they might be using this calendar year, starting in January, as a launch pad for them wanting to, this year I really want to try and do blah, 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 whatever it is. And then they might look for a coach like us.
They might.
To support them on that journey.
Yes.
And I think that's the other thing with anything like this, with a resolution or a goal, which I would prefer, that getting some support, so being part of a community of other people who are trying to do the same thing, if that's not possible because it's something very personal to you or whatever, then getting some support from somebody like a coach. By the way, a coach is never going to tell you what to do. They are never going to say, what you need to do. I've heard what you said. What you need to do with these 5 things, because I did that. That worked for me. That's not coaching. That's
it's not.
Form of mentoring or teaching. It's not coaching, because we're never going to tell you what it is you need to do next. We'll help you explore what it is you need to do next and all sorts of other amazing things. So that would be something I would say, is getting that support wherever you get that.
I think also it's really, really interesting to be curious about that, the thing that you want. And if you've tried a few times in a few different ways to make that thing different and it's not, to the extent that you would want it to be, then that is absolutely something that the feedback is these approaches haven't worked. And to your point, Paul, potentially that support, wherever you get that from, is going to make all of the difference. I think that the other thing I would say is that, I mean, you and I come across this every single day in the work that we do with our clients, the stories we tell ourselves. I've just come on to this podcast and told a story based on evidence that I can't keep resolutions. Well, guess what? That's goddamn true.
Yep.
Because I've just said it is.
Yes, that's right. That's right.
So I've just been a little case study in how not to keep your New Year's resolutions by going into it, telling yourself the story that you can't keep them.
100%. It's so true. It's so true. And, you know, I would say if you were looking for some support in approaching this, I would say I remember when you did that body camp thing ages ago.
Oh, yeah.
And that was like 4 months,
Yeah.
you know, of hardcore, everyday exercise regimes, nutrition regimes, no excuses. We were traveling a lot. And it's like, wow, I mean, I was really in awe of how you were just like, right, well, it says no excuses, so I'm not going to make any. And we were in all sorts of places, and you were having to lug all this stuff around with you, and it was like, wow, I mean, that was some hardcore commitment. So I would then offer back to you, which we would have done by exploring this in conversation, I'd offer that back to you and go, well, there's some evidence that you can actually.
Yes, exactly. And then, you see, ultimately, these programs don't succeed because although you're accountable within the boundaries of the program, when it ends, that is not embedded into who you are as a person. And therefore, ultimately, these things all fail because the reprogramming, the story has not happened. You've simply overlaid somebody else's set of boundaries.
Exactly.
Over the top of your own, and when that goes away, which it inevitably must, because let's face it, you're not going to move in with your personal trainer or the people who develop these programs. So that's the big missing piece, the story that sits behind it that drives the behaviour. So all of these things address the behaviour, but not the story.
Yeah.
And so if you have tried and you haven't succeeded in whatever it is you want, there's probably a limiting story in there somewhere.
I would also say that it's not necessarily addressing the behaviour, it's suppressing it. It's giving you strategies to manage it. Okay, down you go. We're just going to do these other things. It doesn't actually get to the root of it. So
no, it presses the pause.
Nothing is different.
No.
And so, yes, that's right. That's why a lot of these things don't necessarily work for people. And there are others where that is enough for them to really make a total life change, you know, in whatever the program might happen to be, some kind of self-improvement or personal growth, whatever, it doesn't matter. You know, them seeing that difference can be enough for them to go, boom, I'm not turning back. I'm loving where I am.
It absolutely can. It absolutely can. We always talk about this concept of bounce back, don't we? That in any change, in any setting, there is always bounce back. There's forward momentum. And then that is, by definition, fresh territory and therefore unfamiliar. And at a certain point, we all bounce back to one degree or another. It varies. Into the familiar, which is what we did before. And some of us bounce back all the way. Yes,
well-trodden paths.
Which is why it can feel like, you know, this circular, I'm trying again. Well, okay. Yes, and really, if you are one of those people who's trying again, I take my hat off to you. Absolute kudos for stepping into the arena again.
100%. And it's also an opportunity to do something differently, not
Yes.
just do the same thing and expect a different result.
There we go.
So what we're going to do is we're going to recap some of our top tips, Lou. So the first one that you mentioned was around being aware of the story that you're telling yourself going into the resolution or goal, whatever it is that you're going after. Be aware of the story that you're telling yourself as you think about that thing that you want to be different.
Yes.
What else?
I would say that you do need support. That's something we've touched on here. Groups, teams, online, one-to-one. Honestly, you know yourself better than anybody else. What support do you need? There is no extra prize for doing it all by yourself.
Yes.
No one's going to go, oh yes, they did do that, but look at all the support they had. So it's not a thing to try and do it without support. So look at that. What support do you need? That's really important.
There's two things I wanted to mention on top of that. One is tune in, connect, visualize in as many ways as you can what it is that you're going after and what it means to you and why that thing is good or whatever the benefits are to you, to those around you, all the rest of it. Spending time really tuning into that, imagining the end state and what does it feel like, what does it taste like. If it's not something that is you're connecting with, that doesn't evoke some kind of emotional state change, then maybe it's not the thing. Maybe it's something that you're just kind of pushing on yourself. And so refining it and tweaking it can be very, very powerful. The other thing I would say, be mindful of just suppressing the thing that is already there. So the fact that you're not already doing the thing that you want to be doing, that's great, as we talked about joining one of these programs or whatever else. Be mindful of what it is that's underneath, because the moment that flow stops, that's when the bounce back can occur, when the thing that's underlying hasn't been addressed.
Yeah, and the other thing I wanted to say is that it's tempting for us to say to ourselves, I will be happy when ... So if you tune in, as you just said, Paul, to the feelings that sit underneath what you want, how do you want that? Let's say I want to earn more money in my job. Okay, great. I want to earn this amount of money. Well, how will that make you feel? Will it make me feel safe? It will make me feel secure. Okay, and then what I often do with people is I say, and now we're going to circle back and look at all of the evidence of your existing here and now safety and security. And then that pulls the feelings into the present moment. And so we're not saying I will feel safe and secure when. We're saying I already feel it.
Yes.
It will be amplified when. So that it's not, you're not coming at it from a place of scarcity, you're coming at it from a place of amplification.
Which is amazing. So good news, everybody, is that we find this stuff really easy. We are the
Yeah, I've got it all squared away.
We're the models of success. So if you need any tips, just, check us out, because we've already smashed all this behind a bag of crisps and a bottle of wine. And if you would like to get involved, then in suggesting a theme or whatever, do send us an email to curiousbrainfarts@gmail.com.
Love that.
Love that. Well, listen, we're busy and important, and
Right.
I'm actually going to go off and pick up Dad. He's at
Yes,
the day
thank you for
centre.
doing that. Love him. It's a bit icy today and it's a bit difficult for Mum.
Bit treacherous, so I took him this morning because it was too dodge.
Maybe pop him in his wheelchair if it's a bit icy, look.
Well, I'll be all right, you see, getting him from the Majobby out the thing, because they salt it there. And
They
then-
desalt it, do they?
Yeah, and Mum and Dad's driveway is so rubbish.
It's
if
really
it was,
crap.
If it was smooth, like
You'd have a problem.
you'd have a problem. As it is, it's sort of like the Himalayas, so there's
He
no
can stumble,
ice,
trip over that, no problem.
no problem. He's not going to slip.
Thank you for doing that, Paul. It's really, really great.
Oh, well, it's just we would all be doing it were we all closer. So
I know.
I'm representing.
You are. None of the rest of us siblings are close by, so it all does fall to Paul, and we are all hugely grateful.
Amazing. Well, it's my pleasure to represent us all, and we look forward to seeing you all next time.
Tutty buys.
Bye-bye now.
Curious Brain Thoughts.